Pause 3S. The story of Palestine is one etched in complexity and conflict. In the wake of World War II and the Holocaust, a global push for a Jewish homeland emerged. This led to the 1947 United Nations Partition Plan, dividing Palestine into two states, one Jewish, one Arab. This plan, however, sowed the seeds of discord. The subsequent 1948 Arab-Israeli War resulted in Israel's victory and expansion beyond the United Nations designated borders. This displacement of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians marked the beginning of what is now a decades-long occupation. The international community remains divided on the legality of the occupation, with many considering it a violation of international law. This ongoing dispute has created a humanitarian crisis, leaving Palestinians in a precarious state of statelessness and uncertainty. The plight of the Palestinians is a poignant reminder of the human cost of unresolved conflict. Their struggle for self-determination and a peaceful future remains a pressing issue on the global stage. I'm sure you've heard the news. The story of Palestine is one etched in complexity and conflict. In the wake of World War II and the Holocaust, a global push for a Jewish homeland emerged. This led to the 1947 United Nations Partition Plan, dividing Palestine into two states, one Jewish, one Arab. This plan, however, sowed the seeds of discord. The subsequent 1948 Arab-Israeli War resulted in Israel's victory and expansion beyond the United Nations designated borders. This displacement of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians marked the beginning of what is now a decades-long occupation. The international community remains divided on the legality of the occupation, with many considering it a violation of international law. This ongoing dispute has created a humanitarian crisis, leaving Palestinians in a precarious state of statelessness and uncertainty. The plight of the Palestinians is a poignant reminder of the human cost of unresolved conflict. Their struggle for self-determination and a peaceful future remains a pressing issue on the global stage. For Palestinians living in the West Bank and Gaza, life under occupation is a stark reality. They face restrictions on movement, economic hardship, and constant security threats. Imagine living in a place where checkpoints control your every move. This is the daily reality for many Palestinians. Their access to essential services like healthcare and education is often limited. The Israeli military presence is pervasive, leading to frequent raids, arrests, and clashes. This constant state of uncertainty takes a toll on mental health and well-being. The psychological impact of living under occupation is immense, particularly for children who grow up witnessing conflict and deprivation. The international community has a moral obligation to address this humanitarian crisis and work towards a just and lasting solution.
The daily struggles we face are overwhelming. Every day we navigate through checkpoints, unsure if we'll make it to work or school on time, or even at all. The stress and anxiety are constant, and it's especially hard on our children. They deserve a future free from fear and uncertainty.
A particularly contentious aspect of the occupation is the establishment of Israeli settlements in the West Bank. Considered illegal under international law, these settlements continue to expand, further encroaching on Palestinian land and resources. The presence of settlers often leads to tension and violence. Clashes between Palestinians and settlers are frequent, exacerbating the already volatile situation.
From our perspective, these settlements are a necessary measure for our security and heritage. We believe in our right to live here, but it's undeniable that the situation is tense. We often find ourselves in conflict with our Palestinian neighbors, and it's a difficult and complex issue for everyone involved.
Palestinians often experience harassment and intimidation by settlers, who operate with a sense of impunity. This creates a climate of fear and insecurity, further eroding trust between the two communities. The expansion of settlements is widely seen as an obstacle to peace. It undermines the possibility of a contiguous, viable Palestinian state and perpetuates the cycle of conflict.
Section 4. Deprivation and despair. Losing land and livelihood. The confiscation of Palestinian land for settlements and security purposes has had a devastating impact on the Palestinian economy, particularly in the agricultural sector. Olive groves, a source of livelihood for generations, are often uprooted or destroyed. Access to water, a precious resource in the arid region, is another major point of contention. Israel controls the majority of water resources in the West Bank, leaving Palestinians with limited access. This disparity in access to water has severe consequences for Palestinian agriculture and daily life. The situation is particularly dire in Gaza, which faces a water crisis due to the blockade and over-extraction of groundwater. The economic hardship faced by Palestinians is compounded by restrictions on movement and trade. The separation wall and checkpoints impede the flow of goods and services, stifling economic growth and development.
Section 5. Profiting from occupation, the role of foreign companies. The occupation of Palestine is not just a political and humanitarian crisis, it's also an economic one. A number of foreign companies are complicit in the occupation through their business dealings with Israel. Some companies provide equipment and technology used by the Israeli military, including surveillance systems and weapons. Others operate in Israeli settlements, profiting from the exploitation of Palestinian land and resources. This corporate involvement in the occupation raises serious ethical questions. By doing business with Israel in a way that benefits from the occupation, these companies are contributing to the violation of Palestinian rights. Growing awareness of this issue has led to calls for boycotts, divestment, and sanctions, or BDS, against companies complicit in the occupation. The BDS movement aims to exert economic pressure on Israel to comply with international law and end the occupation.
Section 6. A call for justice. Recognizing humanity in Palestine. The situation in Palestine is a stark reminder of the human cost of prolonged conflict and injustice. It is imperative that the international community takes concrete steps to address this crisis and uphold the rights of all people involved. A just and lasting solution must be rooted in international law and respect for human rights. This includes ending the occupation, dismantling the settlements, and ensuring the right of return for Palestinian refugees. It is time to move beyond rhetoric and take meaningful action. The world is watching, and the call for justice in Palestine grows louder with each passing day. We must listen, we must act, and we must stand on the right side of history.